facilitating this afternoon the first of a series of webinars that we are organizing to replace EUA's annual conference that was supposed to be taking place at the same time in Gdansk. But for obvious reasons that I think we're all aware of, it is not taking place there. This session was supposed to be chaired by my colleague Thomas Jørgensen. Unfortunately, he is not able to be here, and therefore I need to be disappointing all of you who wanted to join this to listen to Thomas. But I'm filling in for him today. This session is about university alliances and whether they can change the game. Can they make us as universities more impactful in society? Can we find strength in numbers if we join forces? We have seen at EUA that the international strategic collaborations have gained importance in the universities, and one of the examples probably that I would assume that those of you who are listening to us today is well aware of is the European Commission's European Universities Initiative. And that's why we decided originally to wrap up our annual conference today, the 17th of April, with a session on discussing these strategic alliances. Unfortunately, now the situation is such that we're starting our series with this topic. But it's still a pleasure to be here and to see you all so numerous listening to us. We have three speakers. We have panelists as soon as we get the third one to join us, despite of some technical issues. And in addition to the speakers, I'm going to show you a little sneak peek to the results of a survey EUA has carried out this spring. We asked the universities across Europe what they think of the strategic partnerships and whether they have those across the borders. And we received in the beginning of this year the 219 valid responses from 34 countries across Europe. And today I'm going to show you a selection of these just a couple of statistics that as basis that come from the survey. However, after this event, you will get an email where you can have a link to a more comprehensive presentation of key findings. So there will be a video posted in the YouTube channel where my colleague Anna-Lena Klaas-Kulik is explaining the key findings. And in the end of this month, there will be a report on this. Anna-Lena is also listening to us today, so if there are questions about the survey, she will be able to answer them in the chat box. However, in general, we are just using those figures and findings as a basis for the conversation with the panelists today. Another thing you will find in the email is also that you will get after the event is that the colleagues who are taking part in the panel have given us some further reading and presentations that and links to materials that explain more where they come from and where some of the statements that will be made in this webinar come from. So, a couple of practicalities. I already mentioned the EUA's YouTube channel. This video is being recorded and it will be posted on that YouTube channel after the event. So you can have a look if you want to refresh your memory, or you can advertise it to your colleagues. Some colleagues are not hearing us well, apparently, but I think most of you are, because there are not so many questions there. Thank you for the confirmation, Anna-Lena. So, the panelists are, I will move to the next slide and show you that also. We are supposed to have Vanessa de Piacenton, head of higher education unit from the Commission here with us. She is trying hard to get in to the webinar. Let's hope she will manage. My colleagues are working on it with her at the moment. But we do have, fortunately, some of our panelists, so that I don't have to do this all alone the whole session. Dorothy Kelly, Vice Rector for Internationalization from the University of Granada, Spain. And Dorothy is also coordinator of the Argus European University Alliance. Then we have Rasmus Larsen, Provost from the Technical University of Denmark. And they have different perspectives to working on strategic alliances, and I'm going to pick their brains in the next hour. That was for the introductions from my part. Then I'm going to show you the first figures promised. First one is that our survey results show that the universities have many international strategic partnerships at institutional level. And what we mean by strategic partnerships is that the collaboration between universities across borders is not linked to only one specific project, but it covers more activities of a university in a more strategic manner, in a long-term manner. So the respondents clearly showed us that they have 3 or more such partnerships. Only 13% don't have any of those. What we also see from the survey results is that these partnerships have existed for quite a long time. They are not a new phenomenon, so it's not as if we invented this. But among the respondents, at least, it shows that in the past couple of years there has been continuation, or let's say acceleration of these. New ones have been set up, perhaps partly because of the initiative launched by the European Commission. And then the third thing that we learned is that the European Universities Initiative has triggered great interest among the respondents of our survey. Most of them are part of these new alliances, are preparing to be, are hoping to be, or at least thinking about being part of them. A minority has decided not to be involved. So, those of you who don't have sound, one option is that if you refresh the page or you log out and you come in, that might sometimes help with the sound. But now I'm going to, after having said all this about the partnerships, that some of them are new, some of them are not, I'm going to start with Dorothy. Can you tell us the rationale of the University of Granada? You are involved in the Argus University Alliance, but you have also had long-term partnerships with other universities. So this the idea of collaboration is not new one. What do you see the added value of this new partnership, and what's the relationship between what you've done before?
Okay, can I just, first of all, I hope everyone is hearing me okay, say that it's a very great pleasure to be here from my living room also, but to be here virtually with all of you, with my fellow panelists, and with you, Tia, on the part of the EUA. And then to move on to the actual issue itself, can I say that, as you have just said yourself, the University of Granada has always been a very, very strong believer and been very strongly committed to a multilateral approach to our international partnerships, because we believe that not only are they richer, but they are stronger. And to pick up on one of the points of the survey, in our particular case, this has been part of our international strategy, even if it was not explicit at the time, since 1985, when the University of Granada joined one of the very, very first initiatives to exist at European level in university networking, and that is the Coimbra Group. The Coimbra Group, as most of you will be aware, is a network of 39 long-standing research-driven universities, comprehensive universities, working together to exchange best practice, to attempt to influence European higher education policy, but also to create special academic and cultural ties to promote internationalization, academic cooperation, excellence in learning and research, and service to society. And we have seen over the years, our experience over the years is that working together in a multilateral network of this kind helps us to develop not only the mutual knowledge, which is essential to work together, but the mutual trust, which is absolutely essential as the basis for any strategic cooperation. And we have also seen that that trust comes with time. So when the European Commission launched the initiative of the European universities, of course, I think one of the first reactions in some of the larger, more long-standing networks was, well, what is the difference? What does this mean for us? For the University of Granada, it was very clear that this was a logical progression. It was a smaller, more intense kind of collaboration that we could develop with partners with whom we had already been working for a long time and whom we already trusted and knew quite well. And I think that is important. The basic approach then, when we put together our alliance, was that we would work with partners that we knew well. And all of us come from prior experience, either in a larger multilateral environment, such as the Coimbra Group. When I say larger, it's not a large network, it's a medium-sized network, but larger, of course, than a European University Alliance. Or in other networks also, such as the Utrecht network, which is again one of the longer standing networks on the European scene. But also some of our partners bring in their experience in a much more intense bilateral strategic partnership, as would be the case of our two German-speaking partners, the University of Leipzig and the University of Graz in Austria. We saw that working with a group of 7 universities had the added value of allowing us to go much deeper into our cooperation than we were able to do in this medium-sized network of almost 40 universities. But building on that experience and building on our shared profile, and I think this is something which we share with Rasmus's approach also, a shared profile to our multilateral cooperation, but also building on and from our complementary strengths, which we have reflected in our initial work plan and the different areas in which we want to work together. Our alliance is a cross-cutting institutional alliance with a very, very cross-cutting approach to our cooperation, with the idea of a participative design, co-creation, if I use the buzzword, of our work plan and what we want to do together, involving in as participative a way as possible as many different parts of our institution as possible, hence the strategic aspect. When I say complementary strengths, maybe a little bit later, I can come back to the actual areas in which we're working together, which cover many, many aspects of the university's activities. all of the missions, and again, this is something which perhaps we will have time to come back to later, not just teaching and learning, not just learning and teaching, but all of the university's missions. And we have also taken this, and this is part, I think, an important part of the added value, and I'll stop here for the moment, as an opportunity to pilot, to try, to test. So we understand that one of the big added values of this initiative at this time is that it allows us a space where we can work as a laboratory for institutional learning, both at an individual level for each of our institutions, but also collectively as an alliance. And I think for the moment, maybe I'll just leave it there.
Yeah. So that is the rationale why you decided to apply in the first round already for the European University Alliance, and with whom you did that. Rasmus, the Technical University of Denmark is part of the Eurasec Universities Alliance, which is one of these old, or at least has been around for a decade right now, alliance, way before the European Commission initiative. I trust you've had conversations and reflections on whether to join the EU's initiative. What do you see could be the kind of the pros and cons of that, if you think of the alliances you already have in place?
Thank you, Tia. And let me just say before I answer your question, express my thanks for the invitation to participate in this panel to talk about something that is very dear to my heart, namely international collaboration. Certainly from the standing point that the view gets much better when you stand on the shoulders of others than when you stand on the toes of other people. And to build these alliances of trust, to establish that sort of collaboration can really enhance the activities of the university. Let me also say a little bit about the Eurasec University Alliance. So as you said, Tia, it was established a decade ago. We'll celebrate our 10-year anniversary next year. And we are an alliance of 6 technical universities in Europe. My own university, the Technical University in Munich, the Technical University in Eindhoven, EPFL in Switzerland, École Polytechnique in France, and the Technion in Israel. Now, the Eurasec Alliance collaboration has a slightly different mission than the European Universities Initiative. So when we started the Alliance 10 years ago, it was with the view to pursue excellence in research and education, and to develop engineering solutions to the grand challenges of society, and to orchestrate a deep collaboration between our universities on all levels of the organization, from the individual researcher and teacher to the university leadership. Simply a collaboration across the value chain of the university, research, education, and interaction with society and innovation. So you asked how it is different from the European University Initiative. So one difference is, of course, that the collection of partners that we have in our alliance is not immediately applicable to the European Universities Initiative, because we have 2 partners that are outside the Erasmus partnership, namely the partner EPFL in Switzerland and Technion in Haifa. So while they can participate in Horizon Europe, for instance, and we have, I can see that we have Vanessa with us now.
Yes.
Great.
Very good to have you with us, Vanessa. We've been looking forward to seeing you. I think all of us has. We still cannot hear you. So you have to.
Check these things and take away your. Helena, can you? We are back at the moment, so okay. So you would not your Eurotech alliance would not be eligible as such even for the EU initiative at the moment.
Not as the full alliance. So of course we have been contemplating
as part of the.
To be part of the European Universities Initiative anyway, with those partners who can join, and then the two other partners on the sideline.
Yeah. Okay. Vanessa left us again. Just the moment I was about to talk to her. Let's see if we can get her back. I can hear myself now, so at least I hope that somebody else can hear. Okay, I see some of our colleagues have been, participants have been able to fix their problems of hearing us. Vanessa, still can't hear you. You're muted. You need to activate, you need to press the button that activates your microphone. That would help, but it doesn't seem to be working at the moment. And I don't know if my colleagues can perhaps help. Maybe try to activate it.
The button did not appear, but suddenly it just appeared.
Okay, good. Maybe somebody managed. So we have heard from the rationale from our other two speakers of why they are involved in different alliances and why perhaps not always in the European Commission university alliances. What we can see from EUA survey is that there have been alliances for a long time. This is not a completely new invention, the initiative you have launched, even if it has gotten quite a bit of visibility. What's the rationale? Do you want to be a game changer or add value to the existing alliances?
Well, the objective is to build on what exists, but to bring it to the next level of ambition. So indeed, what is very interesting with your study is that it shows that we do not start from scratch, and that indeed, as were mentioned by the previous presenters, a lot of cooperation already exists. But the overall objective, which was the objective of the education ministers when they discussed about this initiative, was to first increase the competitiveness and attractiveness of European higher education institutions, and second, to bring Europeans together. Because what is interesting in your study, yes, it shows that a lot of cooperation already exists. But if you map this cooperation, you will see that it's very much developed within Western Europe, but that it's not necessarily, it does not necessarily cover well, the old parts of Europe. So one of the first objectives was to really link the different parts of Europe, north, south, east, west. And one of the first outcomes of this new initiative of the European universities is that we have seen new partnerships between not only within Western Europe, but with other parts. Quite often, it builds on a long partnership of existing partners, quite often within Western Europe. But the beauty of it already is that it has reached out others. So that's already something very good. Now, of course, the next, and it's a more midterm and long-term outcome, is what will we get out of it? And the first objective, when we say bringing it to the next level, is to go, is, if you want, what we expect is these alliances to really invent the universities they want to be in 10, 20 years' time, with having not only a cooperation at the level of a faculty or at the level of a teachers, but here the objective is to have a real cooperation with a real strategy at the governance level, ideally covering all the faculties. So we're looking at a long-term strategy with a structural, systemic, and sustainable impact. To do what? Of course, and this is one of the results of your study. A lot is going on, also in terms of mobilities. But here, the objective with this long-term strategy is to build a European inter-university campus, where the students can feel at home in any of these universities. When you think about what we are all living now, the COVID-19 crisis, if you can imagine these European universities, where they would have already set in place a virtual inter-university campus, where they can put in common all their online courses, that would mean that all their students could benefit all their online courses, not only the ones of one university, but of all the universities that are part of the alliance. And we know by being in contact with Dorothy, with Erasmus, and other European universities, that actually they're reshuffling a little bit their priorities to put as a top priority to put in place this virtual campus, because they see that this is what they need most at the moment. And those that are already quite advanced can already see the benefit of it. So I think that what this crisis shows us is that such type of deeper cooperation is even more needed, even more necessary in these difficult times. And of course, then the other objective is to have a common strategy on education, but also linking it with the research innovation objective where relevant. And here we had imagined with these European universities to set in place a challenge-based approach, where teams of students from different disciplines, different cultures, different countries can work together with researchers, together with companies, with cities to tackle challenges. And we see that this is happening on the ground. We see a lot of solidarity, a lot of creativity in the context of this unfortunate crisis, and this is what such deeper cooperation can bring in as well.
Thank you, Vanessa. You're starting to take the words out of my mouth, but you did mention a few things that I think are important, and we do need to discuss here with Dorothy and Rasmus as well. How do you see that the impact of the crisis for your alliances, your work? Do you sign up to what some researchers have said, who have said that, okay, this will be the end of international cooperation as we've known it, or is it the way that Vanessa said, that this is even more important and gives more impetus for your work? I see that at least Arcus has in their Twitter feed mentioned that you are more committed than ever. So maybe you want to say, Dorothy, what does that mean in practice?
Maybe just to start by completing, by the way, the composition of the alliance, because I have mentioned Graz and Leipzig and of course Granada, but I had not had time to mention Padova in the Veneto region of the north of Italy, perhaps particularly poignant at this time, Vilnius in Lithuania, Bergen in Norway, and Lyon in France. So those are the 7 universities. What has happened with the pandemic? Well, of course, the pandemic has had a huge impact on all of our universities. And I think that the first impact for our alliances is that the time at which it has happened has been a little bit unfortunate, because for those of us who were only a few months into a first work plan, and this may not be the case of Rasmus's alliance, which has already existed for some time, in our particular case, the state of alarm was declared in successive states only days before we were about to hold our first annual conference, where we were going to bring together around 300 people working at all 7 universities, cross-cutting across institutions, as you've been describing, in policy issues, in learning and teaching, in multilingualism, in inclusion policies, in entrepreneurial policies, in research, and so on and so forth. And of course, this was quite a difficult time for us to go through, and it means that we have had to restructure seriously our work plan in order, first of all, to overcome the lack of that instrument, because we felt that was a very, very important instrument, bringing people together. I mentioned at the beginning mutual knowledge, mutual trust, and of course that's based on people always. So that for us, that was an important setback at, I think, a point in the development of our first work plan, which was unfortunate. But of course, that doesn't mean that we have stopped working. We already were working a lot online. Our working groups have been working online right from the moment when we started to develop the application. And we've continued, and we are currently restructuring the work plan to make sure that we can move forward in different areas. 2 points, perhaps. I like to be optimistic, and I think that in this terrible pandemia, we must, and I think as universities, it is one of our responsibilities and obligations, we must find the lessons to be learned, and we must find the opportunities to move forward. So we are attempting to take this very trying time as an opportunity, also for our alliances, for our multilateral cooperation, to learn from each other. We're learning an awful lot about digital tools, digital learning, digital assessment, which is maybe one of the big issues right now. Administrative tools. We're learning an awful lot about rapid reactions in institutions, which are not always rapid and agile in our reactions to what is happening around us. And I think we're learning an awful lot in that sense about crisis management and so on. And I think very clearly, very, very clearly, we're going to have to rethink internationalization. And if you will allow me to be positive about this, I would agree that this is an excellent opportunity for rethinking internationalization beyond physical mobility, and for understanding internationalization and international cooperation in the sense of internationalization at home, internationalization for all, internationalization of the curriculum, and internationalization, of course, of all the other missions of the university also. That as a first reaction, at any rate, too.
Yes, thank you. Indeed, there was a report EUA published last month about internationalization, and it did underline that we need to think beyond mobility, and now we are here, so we really do need to do that. Rasmus, in your alliances, how do you reflect on the impact of the current crisis?
There's no reason not to say that it's a difficult time. For universities, trying to run universities from students and staff's homes, as we are doing in these days. But I think some of the positive elements is that it has been a massive eye-opener for digital learning technology, and so many more teachers and students have now been exposed to various types of techniques, tools to conduct that. And many of us have discovered that that online meetings can be quite effective, and sometimes perhaps even more effective than meeting physically. I think that's an important lesson, and that we will take with us as we, at least in Denmark, are slowly beginning to reopen the society and the university. I wanted also to say, to give 3 small testimonials about the benefits of a university alliance. So first, from the university management perspective, we can see that those research consortia we built inside our alliance have more success in achieving European funding than other consortia. So in fact, there is a 50% higher success rate for research proposals made inside the alliance than the proposals that we participate in outside. So that's just one small benefit. I would also like to make a testimonial from a researcher's perspective. So for the past 3 years, I've been part of the governing board of our alliance, but before that, I also participated in alliance activities and as a university professor. And in fact, when I participated in the first workshops to see if there were possibilities of forming consortia, it was like entering a room of cousins. So there was this immediate trust to the other people in the room, because they came from the alliance universities, universities that had the shared ambition of excellence. And it was really at that point also an eye-opener for me of the benefits of working inside university alliances. And then finally, from a student's perspective. So one of the activities that we are running in our alliance, we call it the European Venture Program, is a program for student entrepreneurs. So a program that supports entrepreneurial education, students that have the ambition to start their own company already in their student years. And certainly for those students from my own university, from a small country, there's a huge benefit of being exposed to the innovation ecosystem of the entire alliance, giving them access to mentors, to investors, to markets in six countries on the European scale proves very beneficial. So we have 25 teams from our universities in that program every year. And actually, one of the first teams that participated from our university was a group that had a digital learning tool. So the company is called PeerGrade, and it provides a digital tool to orchestrate peer grading, that students participate in grading other students' assignments. Now that company actually became a success. They have sold their product to thousands of institutions all over the world, and they have become a success, and they are really becoming a success these days as an edtech company with the possibility of marketing their product in the current situation.
I think it's a very timely reminder to us of the impact that the alliances can really have, and indeed very much needed today. Vanessa, the Commission has also been reacting to the to the situation and giving advice. And in the email we are going to send to the participants afterwards, there will be a link to your website. There was also a question in the chat already a bit while ago about whether the alliances and the mobility in them should change, for instance, for short-term mobility. Do you want to say something more about your responses and your advice?
Yes, definitely. So different answers provided by the Commission. The first one was to secure the international students currently on mobility. So that was the top priority. And I mean, the universities together with the Erasmus Plus national agencies have done a fantastic job for that. So what we've done at European level is to give them full flexibility, to really allow students to continue their assignments, whether they return home or not, to be able to continue online, so that they can really build on this learning outcome, so that they can be, first, they can keep the grant wherever they are, and second of all, that they can follow and continue their learning activities and then get their ECTS credits, so that it can be fully recognized and so that they do not lose, I mean, this period. So that's really important. So full flexibility there. And then what we have seen is an impressive switch from all universities to distance learning and online learning. We were discussing a lot about online learning these last years and months, and the rapidity with which universities switch like that has been really amazing, and all universities should be praised for that. Now, of course, it has also shown a numerical divide with, in terms of IT infrastructure. Not everyone get access to it. And also for some students, access to Wi-Fi and to devices. And I know that some universities have been investing as well to make sure that all their students can be equipped with that. But of course, we will need to take lessons on that and how we can best support at European level the universities for that. And of course, the quality as well of this distance learning can vary from institution to institution, from country to country, from teacher to teacher. Of course, not everyone is at the same level or was prepared for that. So of course, we need to take the lessons. So our commissioner, Maria Gabriel, is in regular contact with the education ministers, and there was a video meeting on Tuesday where they are exchanging the reaction of the different countries. There was a need expressed for exchanging practices. So we have set up a YAMA platform, so online collaborative platform for the ministries to exchange these practices. We have as well on our Erasmus Plus website provided links to some Erasmus Plus funding projects that have been already developing guidelines to guide teachers, professors, students on how to provide online learning, but also how to assess as well online. We know that it's a critical issue at the moment. So there is this webpage, but we know that many other university networks have also been sharing this, which is extremely useful. The more we share, the better, I would say. And we are as well reflecting in the context, that the Commission is working on a digital education action plan. So of course now this crisis, as we have reviewed all the thinking to take into account the crisis, and now we are reflecting about short-term, mid-term and long-term measures. So as short-term measures, we are reflecting on a fast-track access to Erasmus Plus funding for strategic partnerships addressing this need for distance learning, guidance for teacher training, better access and more wider access to students to make sure that no one is left behind, etc. So there is an ongoing call for strategic partnerships. We will analyze it, and then depending on the results, we may, but please keep it as conditional, it's all work in progress, but we may possibly, if necessary, if relevant, launch another call later this year in the autumn, for example, to really provide all the necessary support for our universities. And then we are as well looking at maybe more long-term or mid-term need. Some have expressed the need, and I've seen it as well here in the chat room, of a European platform. So this is a question mark. Do we need a European platform, a central platform to collect all the different online resources? The Commission tried 5 years ago. It was not that successful. Maybe the time was not the right one. Maybe now it would be more successful. Or another approach would be to ensure the interoperability between the different existing platforms. And we have an ongoing Erasmus Plus project called OpenU, developing a kind of single hub for universities, making the link on all the existing platforms and tools that already exist. So we are really working on these different fronts, but of course we need to take the time to reflect with all of you and to see what would be the most useful. And of course, some of you mentioned it as well in the chat room. It's about blended mobility, short-term mobility, virtual mobility, or blended mobility. You know that we had been discussing that in the context of the next instrument, starting from 2021. Now we know, we had a webinar yesterday with Erasmus Plus national agencies, and we are in touch with student and university organizations that we see a pressing need for it. So we are now exploring with our colleagues. There are some legal constraints, but we are analyzing to see how fast we could provide that support. Of course, we have already, in a way, with the force majeure that we have now implemented, we have in a way moved to this blended mobility, with the students who started with a physical mobility and they're ending their mobility with a virtual basically learning. Now we need to see in the next academic year, we could imagine students starting with a virtual mobility and hopefully during the second semester complementing it with a physical mobility. So all this is under reflection and under analysis. But what we can so we will have to see the coming semester will be, of course, critical. We don't know yet whether all universities are going to reopen or not. We know that in some countries they have already decided to reopen only in January next year. So of course we will need to take that into account, and I guess we need to be flexible for the semester to come. And we are there to support and to provide all the necessary flexibility to the universities and to the students to continue the cooperation, be it virtually or be it physically. But then in the more long term, what we can already anticipate is certainly different mobility flows as compared to the ones that we have seen. Maybe shorter mobility, blended mobility, that's for sure. Maybe mobilities maybe less far away. Maybe they will be more interested to go closer to their hometown or home country to be seen. But also what is for sure is that different delivery modes will need to be completely part of a curriculum, be it part-time, full-time, face-to-face, blended, virtual. All these opportunities will need to be offered to the wide range of students. So it's true that this is a reflection, and we need to take the time to reflect on this pandemic and see what are all the good practices that we can keep and sustain them in the long term, and those that need to adapt. So different delivery modes and online learning, distance learning to be fully integrated part of the curriculum. Of course, it will not replace the face-to-face and the physical, and it's not what I am saying, not at all, but as a complement. To offer wide opportunities.
I see that there is some support for the Commission ideas on the online platform and so on in the chat box. How do you see this, Dorothy? Are you sharing in your consortia at the moment? Would you need something European, or is it enough to kind of share with the similar? We started by you talking about that you have in your alliance universities of similar profile. Perhaps it's easier to share in these kind of environments.
We're a similar profile, but I think it is also very true to say that we're at very different points in implementation of the use of digital tools. So yes, of course, we've been learning from each other, and those universities who were further ahead in the implementation of digital tools have been very helpful and made their resources available to all the other partners in the alliance. I think we have a huge challenge ahead of us for the coming academic year, very definitely, in that we are going to be in a situation of combinations. And I think one thing is to plan strategically a move towards virtual academic offer. Another thing is to have found ourselves suddenly immersed in this current situation, and also to have found ourselves so suddenly in this difficult situation, but also we are now going to find ourselves in a situation where different countries, different regions are going to come out of the situation at different paces and so on. So we're going to be in a scenario of a very, very big mix of virtual and face-to-face. And I think many institutions will also have to look at how we combine these two things. And this is something because face-to-face universities and their virtual offer is not the same. I see some comments from friends from the Open University in Catalonia, for example, as a university which was planned as a virtual institution. And I think these are things that we're going to need to look at very, very seriously in depth. And I'd like to pick up maybe just on a couple of things. The first is the whole issue of inclusion. Inclusion with regard to access to technology, access to digital tools and so on, which has certainly been an issue for many of our universities, ensuring that all of our students have sufficient access. And many of us have had to set up very, very rapidly support systems and support programs for students without access to digital tools, normally for socioeconomic reasons, but we shouldn't also forget that there are also students who have difficulty accessing these tools because of special educational, special learning needs. And of course, that's something that we really need to address very, very carefully, I think, in the future. And can I also pick up on a threat which we haven't mentioned, but that I feel very, very strongly right now? And that is that despite our attempts to ensure that our international cooperation has played a role, my feeling right now is that much of the reaction to the pandemia, much of the reaction to the crisis has been national, has been at national level. And the same as I said, I think this is an opportunity because we have gained insights into many, many things and we have learned a lot. I think there is also a threat. And I think that this national basis for much of the reaction is a threat, which we need to be very, very aware of. Those of us who are convinced that the European Universities Initiative is a huge opportunity to ensure engaged European citizenship for the future, really need to take this on board, I think, and look very carefully at what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I think we need the Commission to be there very definitely also. Yeah, I don't know if it's a technical question of having a platform. I think it's much more a political issue of a European approach rather than European tools.
I think you're probably right that it's not about technical platforms, and we do have different technical platforms. For instance, UNESCO has been collecting all sorts of resources and so on. It's more about really finding ways to work with each other when we are at distance. We've kind of taken a little bit of a detour of the pure original topic of university alliances, but I think it is interesting to see that there is a moment. We can still say that this is a relevant topic. We're running towards the end of our hour. Rasmus, there was quite a bit of interest, first of all, towards the tool that you mentioned, but your work in the alliances continues.
It certainly continues.
Yeah.
And let me just add, so I started out by saying that our alliance didn't exactly fit the European Universities Initiative, but of course we were excited by EU taking up the idea of university alliances, and therefore we of course also are putting forward a proposal including the 4 partners and 2 additional partners. If I should wish for something from the Commission on this, it's that this initiative also accommodates some of the existing university alliance. We have another alliance, namely the Nordic 5 Tech, which also doesn't exactly fit the European Universities Initiative because of its its limited geographical distribution, but could also, be a worthwhile alliance to support, I think. And then secondly, that the initiative includes not just education, but collaboration between universities across the whole value chain, research, education, and innovation. That would be something that I would wish for.
Okay, I see there is also, Vanessa, a question to you about the UK participation. I think it was a hot potato until the COVID-19 took over the headlines. But do you wish to elaborate on your plans with the initiative in reaction to these comments?
Yes, no, of course. So we are discussing on the next steps of these initiatives together with ministries and with stakeholders. We had different meetings before this crisis in February. So what came out from these discussions is that first we need to wait a little bit and really monitor closely the alliances before taking any decisions on the further steps. So it's Kevin Guillaume, I think, in the chat room, who asked, are you monitoring the European Universities Alliances? Yes, we are. We are in contact with them at different levels. There are bilateral contacts. We have in the team, each member of the team is following more particularly one alliance. And next week we will have actually a webinar with all the alliances to particularly discuss the impact of this pandemic. And of course, we will be flexible for any readjustment of the plan of the activities of the alliances. There was this question: are they better equipped to face this crisis? I would say it depends how much advanced they were, as was mentioned by Dorothy before. But I've seen many tweets from a number of them who were so proud and so happy actually to have started this cooperation because they could already see the benefit. And some would have wished to have progressed more before it happens, as Dorothy said, but they could already see the added value of it. Now, the next steps, as I said, we need to let a bit of time for the European universities to be able to make progress. But of course, once this is done, then we will. So basically, the feedback from the ministries and stakeholders were: do not rush into launching new calls. Just check the lessons learned before launching a new course. So that was a very, very important message. And then, of course, we will then discuss with the ministries in terms of whether we open it up beyond the European Union. I know that this is a recurrent question, which is directly linked with UK, because it will be the choice of the UK in the end whether they wish to be associated to the program or not, and this de facto will have an impact on their participation in such an initiative or not. But at the moment, this is their choice that they need to make. But of course, currently, as we are in the current Erasmus program, UK is still a full partner, and we are very happy to have on board a number of universities from the UK. And I know that they would not like to see this cooperation ending, so they are very much in contact with their governments to put pressure on their governments to be associated to the program in the future.
Yes, I'm very aware of the fact that we've gone over time, and some of the people already in the chat box have mentioned that they've had to go to different meetings. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to go through exactly most of the questions that were posted in the chat box, but I think there were a lot of ideas brought up, and I think many of the questions perhaps were vaguely answered during this session. There would be a lot of aspects that we should be discussing about the University of Alliances, and we would continue until late evening probably. But I think one lesson drawn from this and the upcoming EUA survey results is that the European University Initiative by the Commission has been important. It has kind of raised the awareness and that given different momentum to the alliances. But we do have other ways as universities to work together, and those ways clearly continue and they are useful. So we should not think that there is only one tool. Sorry for this, Vanessa, but I think it's to me it looks like it's one tool among others.
Yes.
The second
I fully agree.
Yeah.
I think we all do. I think we all do. It's one form of multilateral cooperation, and there are others which will continue to exist.
Yeah.
Yes, we don't need one tool, but we need a collection and tool to be able to address the various needs.
Yes. And the second thing I think for EUA is that a lot of questions were posed about how, for instance, to Rasmus and Dorothy, that we did not really have time to talk about, because I didn't pick them up because they were not so much about the University of Alliances, but they were about how the universities are responding to this situation. So this is clearly something at EUA, as a university organization, we will be discussing very closely starting from Monday morning, and we will see if we can have a separate different topics to be addressed separately, so that we can go further in depth in talking about them. For instance, the equity of the students and how to support the students and so on in this situation. But for now, I do want to thank all the speakers for your availability. In the first place, you were willing to come to Gdansk to speak in our physical annual conference, and then you were willing to take up this challenge of spending your Friday afternoon here with us. Secondly, thank you for all the participants, and as said, we are taking note of the comments made and will be studying them also as guidance for EUA's work. And then I also do want to thank my colleagues who behind the scenes have made it possible to organize both had we done the typical conference and but also this webinar. There's been background work that has been done. So we hope to be in touch with all of you. So Vanessa, Rasmus, Dorothy, thank you very much. And
thank you very much.
Good luck for your work. But let's have a weekend first and enjoy a little bit of rest.
Thank you. And thank you to Vanessa for that wonderful message on the poster in the back of her screen. Live, laugh, and love.
Yes, this is the room of my daughter.
A very good message to take with you going on to the weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to take that one away and show you that just one more thing, our conference will continue next week. We will be talking about other aspects of university collaboration and how we can make a difference in the world. So please join us next week also. So anyway, bye to everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.